This is Dr. Robert Bates from the Concussion Center of Fitchburg, and today we're going to discuss all of the different ocular functional problems that can occur with a mild traumatic brain injury or concussion or a mild stroke. There are many, since approximately 80% of the brain has something to do with the eyes. So let us run through this list. First of all, you can see a visual acuity problem where you don't have clear vision. You can also have a photophobia where you are very sensitive to light because of abnormality of the way light is transmitted in the brain. And you also can have a color vision problem where you have certain colors that you don't see quite as much, or you see more of the color. You can have a stereopsis or stereoopsis where it is more central than it is a peripheral problem. You can have various visual field abnormalities where you cannot see in half of a field of vision, which is a hemianopsia, or a quadrantenopia, where you can't see in one of the quadrants. You can have accommodation insufficiencies where the lens does not constrict or contract, and you don't have quite as clear vision as you should. You can have pupillary function abnormalities, and of course we know the pupil is controlled by a balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic systems in the autonomic system, and it is also, by the way, a very good way with the new units that we have to look at the 8 parameters with pupillary light response to see if there really has been concussion. You can also have a vergence problem. A convergence insufficiency is very common with mild traumatic brain injury, and it usually in a normal person will be a triad where you will have an object coming closer and your eyes of course have to turn both inward to stay on object, and you have pupillary constriction and the lens constricts to have clear vision. And this very often is abnormal with one eye or sometimes both eyes in concussion because of damage in the small fibers that control that triad. You can also have many different types of saccadic eye movement abnormalities, and a saccade, of course, is moving from point A to point B. You can have different parts of the brain involved with controlling and formulating saccades, and there are at least 7 major types of saccade. However, we very often see problems with anti-saccades, which of course is due to some damage in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, also related to depression and visual memory. We also see problems with self-paced saccades and also memory-guided saccades. So we can see many different things with that. Smooth pursuit problems, again, are very common in mild traumatic brain injury. And of course, it uses some of the same areas in the brain, but also different areas than the saccadic movements. A smooth pursuit means that you are following an object as it moves. And of course, this is controlled by many different parts of the brain. And again, because of that, we see some abnormality quite often in concussion, either with eyes having disparity, not staying together, or going ahead of or behind the target and having a catch-up saccade or a saccadic intrusion. There are many abnormalities. We also see a problem with the vestibular ocular reflex, or the VOR, where the inner ear will actually fire directly into the motor centers of the eye in the midbrain, in the pons and in the mesencephalic regions, where you will have the inner ear, the vestibular system, fires to help keep the eyes on target. And again, these pathways are hurt quite often, and we have an abnormality of staying on a target or gaze holding. We see various types of nystagmus, which of course is a fast phase and a slow phase. In actuality, it is a slow phase and then a fast phase, but named for the fast phase. We can see them in the horizontal plane, in the vertical plane. We can see them with specific places that the eye tries to stay in a gaze holding pattern. We can see a rotary type nystagmus. And they give us a lot of good information because each of these areas can create different types of nystagmus. We also see a change in REM sleep with sleep disorders or REM eye movements. Visual perception is quite often abnormal in concussion as well. And we can see, excuse me here, we can see a problem with visual perception. In other words, part of the brain, whether it's dorsal or ventral stream coming forward, we will see a problem with what people perceive that they're looking at, with color or with shape. There's also visual spatial function abnormality, which really is a cognitive process to identify, integrate, and analyze space and visual form, details and structure, and spatial relations in more than one dimension. And of course, this can make life quite difficult. There are also, because of the ability to read necessitates many different types of eye function, very often there's an inability or a problem with reading. There are also complex syndromes such as balance syndrome, which is an oculomotor apraxia, which is an inability to intentionally move your eyes towards an object that you're looking at or trying to look at. And also an optic ataxia, part of balance syndrome, where there's an inability to accurately reach for something that you're looking at. And a third part of balance syndrome is a visual simultagnosia, which is an inability to see the whole picture. So that's a brief list. There are other things that are more uncommon, but as you can see, there are many eye problems that can occur from concussion. And that's why we spend quite a bit of time looking at all of these different types of eye function when we do a complete exam, when we are trying to differentiate the subtype of concussion. I use a right eye system as well as other technology with video goggles and so forth to look and see what is happening with the eyes in certain parameters. So that is it for today, and we will carry on with other lectures in the future so you can understand more and more about concussion. If you would like some other information, you can look at my website, the Concussion Center of Fitchburg, for more information and what we actually do with testing. Have a great day.